Let's talk about how to unmask a narcissist. I could summarize the big takeaway from this video from the top, which is it's not easy, the work is on you, and it still may not happen, but it may be worth a shot in some of your cases. If for no other reason, that for some of you, it could leave you feeling more sane. So let's sort of frame it. Have you ever had this happen? You are in a conversation with a narcissistic, antagonistic, manipulative person. You're doing all the things, right? You're not defending, you're not engaging, you're not explaining, you're not personalizing, you're being good about the radical acceptance. You aren't even fighting yourself having strong reactions, you're standing strong. But narcissistic people are really like, when it comes to arguments, they're like prize fighters. They can go all 15 rounds and they will wear you down. I think with narcissistic folks, it's almost like a war of attrition. So maybe for the first few minutes, even first hour or so, you can sit there like a Zen master as they keep throwing nutty stuff at you. But then you may get worn down, especially the longer the conversation goes on. Maybe they say something to you that hits your pressure point. Maybe they're just in an argumentative mood that day. Maybe they accuse you of something abominable that you never did, wouldn't even consider doing. This is a unique aspect of narcissistic relationships. In early days in adult narcissistic relationships, and certainly family members would know these vulnerabilities as a matter of course, just because of time served in a family. Your narcissistic family members know exactly where to get you, poke you, to get a rise out of you. They know your vulnerabilities. They might make an accusation towards you that is untrue. They may throw an insult at you that really doesn't sit well. They may tease you about something that you're sensitive about. They may keep painting you out as incompetent or overly emotional or not well, even though you are the thing that's keeping a family or a business together. For short bursts, narcissistic people can also keep it together and stay calm, especially when they are sparring, and especially as time goes on. They are wearing you down. Your resistance, not engaging in all the rest of that, is actually exhausting for you, because you're having to hold back on so much, to not react, to not respond at exactly times when we would respond, right? Most survivors of narcissistic relationships tend to overregulate. It's a combination of mild dissociation, numbness, helplessness, maybe even some trauma responses, learning about how narcissistic relationships work, learning that there is no point, and even quite a bit of risk at showing emotion. So you train yourself into that place, and then some of it could be a manifestation of, again, trauma responses. And in many of these encounters, if they go on long enough, we crack. We do. We may yell back. We may throw back zingers ourselves. But the thing to remember is that as we get more dysregulated than them, they tend to stay calm and even get calmer. They may even start speaking really calmly, almost like they're talking you down from a high place. And it feels awful because it feels like they won. Now, you know, I say that you should never call a narcissistic person out directly. It never ends well. There's really no point. It takes an already messy situation and it makes it much messier, and nothing changes. But that's not good enough for many of you, and saying, no, that doesn't work for me. I want to call them out. So that said, how do you unmask them? Maybe the result is not that they say, oh, yeah, thanks for explaining that to me. I get it. I am narcissistic and that's not always nice for you. But maybe unmasking them means that other people see it. You put a little fear in them. Or that the narcissistic person's usual tricks with you or other people don't work. Now keep in mind the things I'm about to share, this list is not doable by everyone because it can require some real shifts within you. And making these shifts within you takes time. But if you do want to pull their mask off, here are some ways you could try to pull that smug mask off of them. The key ultimately to getting the narcissistic person unmasked centers on one premise. As long as you are the one suffering, but other people are not, nobody is going to listen to or likely believe your tale of harm, manipulation, and emotional abuse. Sadly, other people need to get hurt too for them to see it. And frankly, setting conditions for other people to get screwed by the narcissistic person is the key to unmasking them. I know that doesn't feel good. The goal of unmasking is that other people also see the narcissistic behavior, and you stop having to convince people that this relationship or situation, or frankly even this person, isn't healthy. So I'm going to give you some thoughts here. Number one is, and I am not kidding you, don't take the bait. I know I say this all the time, but don't take the bait. Don't. Now, this is sort of a high-level unmasking. Maybe I should have even put this point last. And if you are tired, or you're stressed, or you're worn down, or you're overwhelmed, or the conversation with them is just going on too long, trying not to take the bait is like trying to walk 25 miles on a 100-degree day. It's not easy, it may not be possible, and it's probably going to kill you. Metaphorically, at least. I mean, not in the 100-degree day, you literally probably are going to potentially be fatal. But in a way, there are things you need to do to get to this point of not taking the bait. But if you can get to this point, you will unmask them at some point. So what can be useful is to figure out how to get to the place where you can not, when you learn how not to take the bait. So let's make this point 1A. Because if you don't take the bait, you have to be prepared for them to escalate. They need you to take the bait. And this is where most people sort of fall off and aren't able to do it. When you stop engaging with the narcissistic person in the same way, they will escalate. The insults will become worse. The anger, the poking at your vulnerabilities. If you can endure this period, you will be able to do this, which would take us then to point 1B. If you get through their initial escalations when you don't take the bait, and you can stand strong a few times, you might slowly sense them deflating. And you have to fight against the trauma-bonded drive to want to help them, because they'll turn into victims at this point. You have to turn off that drive to want to help them or engage so they don't seem as deflated. And that's also that fawn response too. And you also try not to lose that sense of radical acceptance. Because if you are able to disengage enough and not take the bait at all, the narcissistic person may start, even behind closed doors with you, may start privately unmasking in a way that feels sad and even vulnerable. And you, sweet you, may even want to rescue them by throwing them a bone and fighting with them again. They may apologize and they may come clean. You don't have to tell them that you don't believe them. But you also can't fall right into, yay, everything's changed. Especially if you can't leave the relationship. Watch the apologies that they give you when they start becoming deflated. And more than anything, watch their behavior at that point too. Because remember, the core of healing, remember that the core of healing from narcissistic relationships, just because they have been unkind to you, or mean, or invalidating, or betraying, you don't have to be unkind to them. Now, they may think your disengagement is unkind, but I'm talking deliberately unkind. But you do have to fight the urge to rescue them or return the dynamic to what it was, where they continue to bait you and try to break their tension by getting you to react. Now, number 2, in some cases, to unmask, you have to make some short-term sacrifices to get the mask off. It may mean that you let them spend money on something stupid in a stupid way and don't try to stop them and let them deal with the mess. Now, they're still going to blame you later, but by not engaging with them about it, they have less of a leg to stand on, and the receipts will be in their name. Or you could go along with a bad plan they made. I once did this with someone narcissistic. It was around travel planning, right? For a long time, I had tried to keep this person from their own mistakes, right? But by doing that, obviously, no one's making a perfect choice. You plan travel, you're kind of shooting into the air, but obviously my choice wasn't always perfect either. But I tended to make better choices because I did more research. And while I'd make a better choice, my choice would sometimes still have problems. And so because my choices weren't perfect, I was still being designated as the travel planning problem. So when I said to hell with it, I'm going to let this person make all the choices. And I knew it would ruin the trip. I knew it. It ruined the trip. And actually made the trip at times a little bit dangerous. But I said nothing to stop it. Now, while this person didn't unmask fully, they did have to explain to other people that we were seeing in this place why we couldn't join them for dinner or do some activities that those people had planned because of how foolishly we made our plans, or they made our plans. I just shrugged about how our travel plans were made, and they looked at the narcissistic person oddly for making such a bad plan. And watching that was like watching a balloon literally deflate. The narcissistic person did turn to me and say, I know you want to say, I told you so. And I nodded and I said, no, I didn't. I never said anything. It just was what it was. But interestingly, I wasn't blamed. It definitely ruined that trip. But the win for me was it confirmed I was not crazy. The other people involved were aware that this was not my decision because I was totally hands off. I didn't try to save it. It meant sacrificing my trip, but that was the price. And it became a little more clear to the people who were present what the deal was. So I'd call it, at least in my story, it was like an unmasking light, but I felt less crazy, which was the win. The third thing here to think about is you got to get to indifference. Now, getting indifferent is the ultimate unmask because it's the equivalent of letting a toddler tantrum in the middle of the restaurant and not feeling embarrassed about it and not caring what anybody thinks about you. Now, getting to indifference, especially in a narcissistic relationship, is not easy, especially if you even feel a shred of compassion for the narcissistic person. I have known people to get to indifference by building out meaningful, purposeful, or even fun activities or relationships in their lives, or talking about the relationship with validating people, but having a life that felt fuller and seeing the narcissistic person as sort of like a bad smell that they had to live with, or like an ant problem that they have in the kitchen that they can't just quite get rid of. There's always a couple ants crawling in. But it doesn't define their existence, and it sucks a little. The indifference pulls the mask off because you really don't engage, because you really don't care. At this point, you will see the narcissistic person probably try lots of strategies. They may be meaner to you. They may be nicer to you. They may try to hoover you a bit. They may love bomb. They may make apologies. They may even come clean. Here's the key. You have to hold on to radical acceptance. And really, I think radical acceptance and indifference go hand in hand. But the beauty of indifference, when you get there, if you can get there, is they're really not investing so much of that heavy level care in it anymore. This is the ultimate unmask. Because at this point, it's just a matter of time before the narcissistic person will get dysregulated, because the old tricks they'd use of domination and control and baiting and poking you and making you look dysregulated and out of control, they no longer work. It's a lot of shrugging on your part, like a lot of that. They will accuse you of being manipulative, cold, doing the silent treatment. But if you're indifferent, they could say those things to you. You know they're not true, and none of it really matters as much anymore. They can call you what they want. Indifference means you are pretty much gaslight proof in this relationship. But again, this indifference thing, a relatively small percentage of people get there. And that takes us to number 4, which is that the ultimate unmask is allowing them to get dysregulated around other people and not try to interfere or to fix it. Most people in narcissistic relationships try to intervene. They try to protect the server in the restaurant, or the other employee that you're working with together, or the flight attendant, or the other family members at the dinner. You've been doing this for years. You've been trying to protect other people from the narcissistic person's dysregulation. You also may not want to ruin a nice day for yourself and other people, or a dinner out, or ruin the waiter's day, or blow up the staff meeting or the family vacation. blow it up. The only way people see it is if nobody intervenes. And most of us do. Maybe some of it is our own shame that this dysregulated, rude, obnoxious, entitled person is our partner or our family member or our colleague or our boss, and we may just be trying to protect ourselves. Let them blow. Sit there calmly. If other people want to intervene, let them intervene. But above all else, let other people see it. And by those other people intervening, they're going to see it too. Now, letting them blow doesn't mean everyone will see them as narcissistic. But at least some people in your midst are going to see them as off. The narcissistic person will most likely blame you for their blow up, which is why point number 3, the indifference, is so important to unmasking them. The corollary to this, though, is to also let other people get hurt by them. I know it sounds hard, especially if it's kids, right? But most people in the world are self-interested and will often take the stance of, well, I never had any trouble with them. I don't know that they're narcissistic. Let the other people have trouble with them. And if the narcissistic person isn't getting the same rise out of you, and you're completely clicked out, they may start turning to other people. And someone else will likely need to be harmed so they will understand it too. This strategy works well in groups and systems like families and workplaces and even friend groups. But make no mistake, some people are still going to be mad at you for not intervening, as though you've been such a useful human shield for so long, they're going to be pissed that they have to do it. Then there's number 5, and this is an important one. If indeed you hope to unmask the narcissistic person, do not call them narcissistic to other people. These words, narcissism, gaslighting, toxic, more and more, even though they're useful words, they have a lot of people on edge. They tend to get overused on social media and other places, and people think you're the bad one for using these words. Okay, so don't use them. Let the narcissistic person's behavior show to the world and speak about what is happening in the relationship rather than using sort of global descriptive terms like they're toxic, they're narcissistic. So when someone asks you, hey, why aren't you coming to the party tonight? You tell the truth. My partner, family member, friend, whoever the narcissistic person is in your life, they didn't want to come. And I wasn't able to drive myself, or I didn't have the bandwidth for the argument. Speak the truth. Share the behavior. If the other person asks, well, why are they, this narcissistic person in your life, why are they so grumpy? You can say to them, ask them, I don't know. For too long, you have been the behavioral and psychological publicist for the narcissistic person. You've been their crisis intervention person. Don't do it anymore. But don't use the almighty narcissism word. These days, it is being used to view the person, you, who's already going through stuff in the narcissistic relationship, as the problem. Describe the behavior and don't excuse the behavior and let other people deal with it. Number 6, don't call the narcissistic person or people out in front of other people. It's not just about calling them out as narcissistic, but even about calling out their crappy behavior. I think we as a world are bizarrely trauma bonded to narcissistic people these days. Maybe there are just, I don't know, maybe there's just too many TikTok videos about toxic people. And the world of narcissism non-believers want to prove everyone else who's been hurt by these relationships, they want to prove you wrong. There's no such thing as a toxic person. Well, listen, the narcissistic people will sink their own ship if you give them enough space. So give them the space. You don't have to be the one to call them out. We get this wrong all the time. And what happens is we want to tell other people they're narcissistic. What ends up happening, sadly, is it ends up making you look like the petty one or the bad one to other people, and may even result in people defending the narcissistic person. That's what you're trying to avoid. Let the narcissistic person fail on their own. You don't need arrows pointing it out. But as you can see, none of the strategies I'm talking about here, these aren't about literally pointing out these patterns to other people, but instead letting the narcissistic person do their thing, not intervening on their behalf and trying to protect them, and letting other people see it. And this is all easier said than done, I know. And I am not going to lie. Even after all of this, people may not see it. When there are so many narcissistic leaders, heads of companies, politicians, bosses, their enablers and their supporters don't see it until the bad thing that the leader does affects them directly. And even then, the enablers and supporters will still find someone else to blame. It really depends on how culty the narcissistic system is. Sometimes it takes narcissistic people literally getting arrested, or screwing over a lot of people, or incontrovertible video evidence, something that you can't deny, to unmask the narcissistic person. And obviously, that kind of big blow up is only going to happen in a tiny number of cases. In most of our lives, in your life, that slow, painful journey toward radical awareness, radical acceptance, indifference, not taking the bait even when they amp up their attacks, and no longer acting, again, as their crisis management agent to protect them and others, is often the path forward. People won't believe your story. The only thing they're going to believe is what directly affects them. And that is when the people around you will see it. And that's what it takes for the mask to fall off. Though at that time, my hope is that you may be too indifferent to give a damn. Thanks again.